when we're looking in the camera.
Good evening and welcome to this Q&A session about Year 8 options for parents and carers. My name is Mr. Roberts. I'm one of the Deputy Head Teachers at Woodlands School. With me I've got my colleague Mr. Newby.
Good evening.
And what we're going to be doing this evening is basically giving you some more information about the options process. As we've said before, it's a very exciting time for our young people as they start to consider some of the things they might want to do moving towards GCSE and beyond. But it's a decision we want them to take seriously. We want them to take a long time to think about it and to consider it carefully. And basically we'll be answering any specific questions that you have tonight. To be able to do that, you just need to be able to put a message into the chat icon, which I believe on a phone should be below the screen. Otherwise on a laptop or computer, it should be by the side. You can just put a question in there. Our moderators will pass that on to us and we'll try to answer them as best as we can. I'll pass over to Mr. Newby, who oversees most of the options process for us. So he will be the main point of contact for the school, who's just going to give you, for the first few minutes, a brief overview once more of the options process, just for those who may not have seen the video that we sent out earlier in the week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Roberts. Okay, welcome everyone. So as I've been introduced, I'm Mr. Newby. One of the big things I do at school and what I do enjoy is helping Year 8 pupils and parents and carers make those choices at this time of year. We have a mock options program which runs until Christmas. Effectively that started this week with your son or daughter would have had an assembly on Monday. Yesterday, of course, you will have been looking hopefully at home because this should have got home Tuesday, Wednesday. We had the booklet, which is here. That's important. It's got a pink cover home on the front there. And really, I'd just like to help tonight with Mr. Roberts. We're going to talk through some key features. We're going to answer some questions. But the key thing to remember is in the booklet as well, we've got some key dates here. And we're already through the first few there, which is informing your son or daughter what options are available. You'll be aware there's 2 pathways. We'll talk about those tonight. Really, the key is not to worry too much about the choices. We don't really want the forms to come back in until the end of term. I think that's probably the best thing, not to rush them. But we would like to know what your son or daughter wants to do for GCSE at Key Stage 4 for the next 3 years. And we do our very best. And one of the things I do is to try and make sure that those first options, those preferred choices, if you like, that we can do, that we can actually make them happen. So we've got, we'll make a start. I'll talk with Mr. Roberts and obviously we'll answer questions as they come online. If we don't answer everything tonight, we're scheduled for another 55 minutes or so, but we will be finishing just before 7. And if there are any further questions, we will let you know at the end as well, obviously, that you can get those answered by email or you can contact the school. And Mr. Roberts or myself, we will get back to you within the day to try to answer them. So the options process, it's begun. It's very exciting, as Mr. Roberts has said. It's all about finding out, I think, about how learners learn. And some subjects are better suited for some learners. And that's quite important, I think, to make the start. It's not about what your friend is going to do. That's important. I think Mr. Roberts would agree with that. It's not about trying to do a subject just because the teacher, you might think the teachers, you've got a good rapport with the teacher. It's very important, I think, that children think carefully about the choices, that it's something they're interested in. They don't have to think they're going to have a career in that particular subject or that area, but it's important that they look widely. And I'd like Year 8s to try to take advantage. Take advantage of what? Well, we've got taster lessons coming up. We've got some videos which we're going to make for the first time, which subject leaders will tell you about, using some pupils as well to help with that, so that there's hopefully talking to tutors, talking to head of year, Mr. Helen, talking to me, talking to yourselves as parent carers as well, that Year 8 will get as much support as possible to think about how they learn and to actually think, yeah, this might be a subject that's of interest.
Thank you. Yeah, and we will thank you, Mr. Newby. We will be returning to hear some more from Mr. Newby in a moment about some of the more information regarding the whole process. I'm just going to turn to some of the questions that we've already been asked. We've been asked, will you get 100% get your first options? Well, the answer to that simply is no, that doesn't always happen. The reason we start this process so early on in year 8, and it might seem really early on considering it's for GCSEs, you've only just started year 8, but that's because Mr. Newby works incredibly hard with the rest of the curriculum and data team to try and make sure that pupils get their first choices wherever possible. Now, most of the time, Mr. Newby and his team are very successful with that. We do find that the large majority of pupils will get to sit their first options. However, the nature of the timetable is that sometimes we have to put certain subjects in the same block for the timetable. That means on at the same time, on the same day, which will mean that occasionally we aren't able to do that. Now, that's why those 2 reserve options are so important. If you do not receive your first 2 chosen options, we will contact you via telephone to let you know that we've put in a reserve option, and we will then have a chat with you about which reserve option you'd like to select, or if you want to change your options or something like that. So whilst we can't guarantee that everyone will 100% get their first options, we try incredibly hard to make sure that happens, and usually, as we say, the large majority do manage to do that.
Yeah. Could I just add to that? Thanks, Mr. Roberts. We also may not know that the uptake of certain subjects. We don't know yet how popular some subjects will be. So just to add to that, everything Mr. Roberts has said is quite right. I'll do my utmost with others to make sure we get the first choices for every year 8 pupil. That is the aim. But we also must be aware that some subjects will be oversubscribed potentially. We might not have enough space, and some might be undersubscribed. We might think this is a subject that will run, and there may only be 4 children for year 8s who want to opt for that. So that is something we have to take into account, that unless we can persuade others to join, that 4 really isn't financially viable to run a course for 3 years with that low number. So we are conscious of making the best choices for your son or daughter, that they make the best choices, and we'll do our best to meet them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So another question we've had, where a course is level 1 or level 2, is that classed as a BTEC? Let me clear up what level 1 and level 2 mean. Essentially, at GCSE level, GCSEs are level 2 qualifications. Now, across the whole country, there are many different types of level 2 qualifications, and they're at sort of GCSE standards. They're the sorts of qualifications we expect young people to achieve at the end of secondary school, okay, so at 16. So most of our subjects are GCSE subjects, but we do occasionally have other qualifications in place. These will be level 2 qualifications as well. So they are GCSE equivalents. So for example, the BTEC in health and social care is a level 2 qualification. All that means is, whilst it's not a GCSE, it is the same standard as a GCSE. So all of the qualifications that we're offering at GCSE are level 2 qualifications, other than ASDAN, which is a specialist qualification more based around life skills, and that's for the blue pathway only. Mr. Newby, are you quite happy to answer the next question?
So a question here we've got about the difference between red and blue pathways, and maybe I'll combine that with another one about 3 pathways, which someone else has said. We've got the red and blue pathways we're introducing, and essentially the majority of the year will follow the red pathway option, which will be where the English Baccalaureate is studied. That is, children will choose, recommended to choose and be successful with the red pathway, which is modern foreign language. That's the subject that someone is studying currently. That's French or German or Spanish, and history or geography. So the red pathway, 2 of those 4 choices will be from the humanities and from the modern languages options from those subjects. The blue pathway won't follow a language, and those pupils on blue pathway will not follow either a humanities, geography or history, so they won't be studying those. They'll have extra time, as Mr. Roberts has said. They'll be following an ASDAN qualification, they'll be having extra PSHRE, and in year 9 they'll go into some will be following some of the pupils who started on the red pathway. We may decide at the end of year 9, in 18 months' time, that one or other of the humanities or language will not be studied further. So that will mean that's a sort of third pathway, the purple pathway. But that's not really to be something I think that we need to concern ourselves at this stage. It really depends how pupils mature, how their positive attitudes to learning continue. So we've got the blue pathway for a small number of pupils in year 8 who we think are best suited for success in following those particular subjects. But I would stress that the number of option subjects we have got on offer is quite a wide variety, and we are opening them to either blue or red pathway pupils. So pupils can now do construction. Obviously, there's a limit to numbers, and hair and beauty. Previously, they've been only available for pupils on the blue pathway, but we think the offer is quite wide and very much available for pupils, whatever their interests lay.
Yeah, so the blue and red pathways, both of those pathways, regardless of which one you're on, you will get those three options, those two options where you can select from the large group of subjects we've got. That doesn't limit what you do in terms of those two free options. Next question, if the subjects chosen are not working for a pupil, are they able to change subjects, and how long do they get to do so? Now, the answer to that is we can't really be moving pupils from one subject to another once the courses have begun. The reason for this is, as Mr. Newby's sort of mentioned, some pupils, if demand is very high for a subject and we're at capacity, some pupils won't be chosen for a subject, won't be able to access a subject because of the large numbers, and it wouldn't be fair then to sort of not give them a place only for someone else to take up a place and then decide they don't want to do the course. Alongside that, it makes very difficult timetabling complications halfway through a year if then we have to change a pupil's timetable. We wouldn't be able to guarantee that they could move on to a subject they wanted to, as that may not fit in the school timetable. It's a very long and complex process putting together these timetables. So unfortunately, we can't have pupils sort of chopping and changing halfway through the year. As well as that, as these are GCSE standard qualifications, pupils would find it very difficult if partway through a year they decide they want to change course. They'd already be quite behind. This is why we take so long about this process. We have a mock options process first, and then we have a final version. That's because we need pupils to make the right decision first time round. So we take a long time, we give them lots of information, we give them lots of advice and a taster of what each subject's like. But once those options are chosen and they've started on those courses, we don't ordinarily allow pupils to change them.
Thank you. Another one coming in here. Do you need to be good at maths to do the computer science course, and is it suitable for someone on the blue pathway? It is quite a demanding course. I would suggest really talk with the computer science teacher that a year 8 pupil has got at the moment. Maths always, obviously, the ability to problem solve and to think quickly and logically will help in many subjects. So it's not a clear yes or no. I think it's to talk to the subject teacher, and obviously a massive element is if someone has got an interest, they're going to put the time in, they're going to be motivated, so they are able to study the course. It really depends on an individual level, and I think that's important to recognize. We want pupils to set out with the best advice we can give them and with the support we're going to give them over the next few months, having known that yes, they've chosen wisely. And it's important, I think, that those conversations take place as soon as possible. So good luck with that if that is a particular interest for some pupils. Computer science, we know, will be popular. We just want pupils to find out about every subject that's available, and hence we've got some of the taster sessions. Hence we'll have some of the videos available as well in the next couple of weeks.
So our next question is asking about language choice options. Is the language choice meant to be the one that they've studied since year 7? Yes, that is the answer to that. So if they'll be doing either French, German or Spanish, and they would pursue that language until the end of the Key Stage 4 course. The reason for that being that languages are a very challenging subject. The majority of pupils more or less start them from scratch in year 7. I know there is some primary school curriculum for that. So we wouldn't advise changing to a new language at the start of year 9. You'd be considerably far behind the other pupils that have done that language for 2 years. So we do expect pupils to carry on with the language they've been studying throughout year 7 and year 8.
Thank you. Another one. Will pupils be given information about the different options and what it involves? Obviously, we've got the booklet. That's the starting point. But we are creating small videos, 3-minute videos for subjects that are new to pupils. So that includes psychology, sociology, some of the subjects which we've introduced in the last year. Obviously, maths, GCSE can be found out in class, art to some extent, although I believe they're going to make a video as well, because pupils follow those subjects. So if you like, the subjects that pupils are already doing, there'll be information given in lessons. But I think with new subjects, yes, I think it's an expectation, and we're trying to match that expectation to provide more information. And there'll be videos, some with pupils, obviously some with teachers leading them and giving information. And if there's further information and queries, you must please, if it's not on the page in the booklet and there's some more information, further research on websites and exam boards is possible, but please contact us at school and we will get the subject teacher or the subject leader to provide that dialogue.
Yeah. So there will be, as we said, we've got the booklet. There's going to be some videos going out in tutor time, and there's going to be taster sessions for each of the new subjects. So there should be plenty of opportunity to find out about those new subjects. And we strongly recommend go to as many as you want. They're going to be on at lunchtimes, those taster sessions. Find out about them because you don't want to miss out on a subject that you may well have enjoyed. The next question, I'm actually going to pass over to Mr. Newby because he'll be the expert in this area. We've been asked, what are the minimum numbers for a class to run?
That's a good question. It does vary. I don't want to sort of suggest there is a hard and fixed number. It does vary, but roughly we wouldn't want a class to run that's under 10 or so. We think there we are, a bit more in focus now. A number such as 7 or 8, we would have difficulty, I think. Obviously, we look at that. We have run classes of 11 and 12, and I think that's fair enough. But we can afford to do that. So it depends really on the subject and how many subjects that are at that stage. But I'm quite confident, we will do all I can to encourage others if need be. And if people have got reserve choices in that subject that say it has 7 pupils, that's more likely to run than a class that perhaps in March has only got 3 pupils. We would be having that discussion and saying it looks like 3. We're not going to be able to get more pupils to take the subject, so that would unfortunately not run.
And that is why sometimes we cannot guarantee that a subject will run, because sometimes we don't get the numbers. But usually we do. Usually we do for each subject. It's only on a rare occasion. Another question we've been asked: why do the blue pathway not do a humanities or a language? It's a fair question. The reason for that is because the majority of pupils that are on the blue pathway will have also been on the target pathway throughout year 7 and year 8. That means they'll have done a minimal amount of humanities subjects. So they might have done one history lesson, or maybe perhaps one geography lesson each week, and might do some language curriculum, but they will not have done throughout year 7 and 8 the full history, geography and languages curriculum. The reason for that being that those pupils, we're trying to provide extra support with their literacy, with their numeracy, helping with life skills as well. So the reason they don't go study humanities and languages from year 9 and beyond is because they haven't been building up those skills in those subjects throughout year 7 and year 8. And we wouldn't want them to be at a disadvantage. What's more, throughout the time at Key Stage 4, that spare time we get on the curriculum that would have perhaps been taken up by humanities and languages, we can then dedicate to extra English support, extra maths support. Of course, we have a wealth of subjects at the school that we're very proud of, but we are realistic, and we're aware as well that when pupils leave us at the end of year 11, it's those maths and English qualifications that for many people are going to make and break, whether they get onto college courses, apprenticeships and things like that. And if we feel that those pupils need that extra support in maths and English to ensure they can move on to the next step of their education, that's the decision that we will take. Do you want to read the next one, sir?
So the next one refers to the sports qualifications. So sports courses are popular, and we have 2 running, just to remind all viewers. We've got sports studies, which is OCR, which is level 2. We've also got the GCSE PE. So both of those run. We don't make that decision at this stage of the year. We like to hear from, obviously, from the PE faculty, how well year 8s are with their attitude, whether they can cope with potentially the demands. And I'd like to think the GCSE PE might just have a greater demand on the pupils in terms of the level of thinking. There is an overlap. There are some parts such as the anatomy and physiology, which I think are in both, and certain structures you'll see that there is a controlled assessment in sports studies. GCSE PE, there is individual and team sports where the ability is assessed on by video or whichever over the course. So they've got differences, they've got similarities. It's about really how best the individual. So without sort of avoiding that as a straight answer, I think both will be relevant to further study. I think you could add a little bit about the post-16.
I think both would allow you to pursue a sporting or a coaching qualification at level 3. So that's at the college sixth form sort of level. So both would be accessible for courses at that stage. For more detail, obviously, the PE teachers in school will provide more information. They'll be happy to talk about it. They're very well versed in the differences between the two courses. But in my experience, having dealt with a lot of post-16, both courses would allow you to go on to sports and coaching qualifications at college and beyond.
I'll just add one thing, if I may. The sports studies is definitely not just all sport, and certainly sports studies has got an element is little practical, less practical than people might think. So it's got to be for pupils who do like that, as Mr. Roberts has said, the ability to talk about sport, about roles and responsibilities in sport, and leading to coaching as a career, which would be great. I think if pupils really have an interest, they ought to find out more, and we'd welcome that.
Our next question is, what is the deadline for pupils where they can't change their mind anymore? Well, the deadline for the final options process, so when Mr. Newby will start working on the timetable sort of in detail, will be the 12th of March. Yeah. Okay, 12th of March 2021. So at that point, we can't have lots of changes because we've already started then building the timetable for the next academic year. We do find that we get the occasional emails sort of throughout the rest of this academic year where pupils might say, look, I've really had a change of heart and all the rest of it. We can sometimes make exceptions at that point, but that would have to be a conversation that was with Mr. Newby or myself, and we would look at whether the timetable would allow that. Once courses have begun in September, it's very rare indeed that we allow pupils to change courses. Because after a few weeks, they're already going to have fallen behind, and we can't have large-scale timetable changes happening during an academic year. It has to be planned beforehand. On very, very rare occasions, if we thought there were mitigating circumstances and there was evidence of how pupils were going to catch up, we might allow 1 or 2, but I have to stress that's incredibly rare. And usually, to be honest with you, if it was a case of I just don't enjoy the subject, we would have to say no at that point. There would have to be some other mitigating circumstances. So my advice would be the 12th of March is really when you want to have your final answer in by. After that point, we cannot guarantee that any options changes will be permitted.
That's fine. Yeah, it actually says in the book at the 4th of March, but by the 12th of March, we're confident that we'll know whether courses will run. As Mr. Roberts has said there, of course, we will do our utmost to meet those requests, those first preferences. But it's so more important that really between now and March that your son or daughter does talk to you at home and obviously to us at school, and that we have that dialogue and get the options right on an individual basis. That's the most important thing.
We've got another question here. How would you choose who gets into a subject and who doesn't where a course is oversubscribed? Well, the first thing I would say about that is we try to ensure that courses aren't oversubscribed as much as possible. So where a course has proven popular with the year 8 pupils that year, i.e. a lot have chosen it, we will look to staff that subject where we can, because we want pupils to be able to do the subjects they're passionate about. So if we do find, for example, a large amount of pupils want to do psychology, for example, and we were only planning to run the 1 class, if we have the staffing capability in the school, we would potentially look at splitting that into 2 classes so everyone could do that option. On rare occasions, and it is rare, we can't do that. And sometimes we will talk with pupils whether we think it's the most appropriate choice for them anyway. Although we will give pupils a free choice, we will also give our advice if we think that it might not be an appropriate choice, whether it's because we feel pupils may struggle with it, or perhaps they've got a misinterpretation of what the subject involves. So on that occasion, we would see who was perhaps more suited based on prior data, so based on how they've done throughout Key Stage 3, whether the skill set that is required for that subject matches their skill set based on their Key Stage 2 prior data. But I have to stress, in the large majority of cases, if a course is oversubscribed, if you like, we tend to try and add another class and find the staffing capability. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but I know there were examples last year where we had more pupils doing subjects than we anticipated, and we managed to staff them and add another class. I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
Just great. That's very clear. I think that we do have staff who are very flexible. They're very willing to embrace other subjects, so they don't just teach one subject. They're very willing to make sure that if there is a larger number of pupils than we might have expected, as Mr. Roberts has said, we'll try to staff it. I think important really as well with the whole process is that pupils need to have that, I suppose, confidence that they themselves are passionate, that they are passionate about the subject. And we may, in some cases, ask the pupils, well, perhaps here's a piece of work, give them a reasonable time to do that and make a case.
Yeah.
You know, we are oversubscribed. We can't decide. There's 15 extra pupils who want to do the course. We're confident we can't staff that. There's only going to be 1 class, and therefore we might just ask, and pupils can then make a case. And I think that's fair enough as well. But we don't have to do that often, I would add.
No,
we don't have to do that often.
Yeah.
But it is important to mention that obviously there are limitations on our resources.
So yeah, so on a rare occasion, we would look at pupils giving us some information about why they want to do the course. We might ask them to explain that and see which pupils are most passionate about that.
Can I answer the next one?
So,
sorry, there's one here which says about the mock options, and do pupils get a new timetable from the mock options or only when they select? Well, the information from the mock options goes on our system. We've got a database that works out, and we're able to manipulate that. And myself with others can try to make sure that the best choices are available, that the first choices, second choices. Most pupils don't have to have their reserve, but we do want the reserves in by December. So that goes on our system, and then when the new option form comes in March, so we'll reissue another one in the spring term. And when we get them back in March, we will update the system. So we will we'll overwrite the options. Very few people seem to make changes. There's more people who don't change in that final options, but we do obviously acknowledge that, and we check, and if people have radically changed 2 or 3 options, we have a discussion with them to make sure that that is the case. We may well obviously discuss it with parents and carers, but it is the final options which the timetable then is made from, and therefore in March we are in a position to know really whether pupils have got their preferred choices. We don't tell them, but we will tell them over the summer term, towards the end of the summer term, and we'll be behind the scenes making sure that we can timetable that selection of choices, and individuals will get a new timetable based on their latest choices. I think that's the important thing. But it surprises me every year where a lot of pupils don't change their mind from December to March, and that's fine. But this year it might change. This year we just want to give even more information so that the final choices are the most appropriate ones.
And it may seem odd that we start again this early in the year when this timetable is going to be what your child is studying in year 9. So effectively it's almost an entire year away when they get their brand new timetable with all of their options on it. but how the nature of how a school runs is that we have to start building the timetable for the next year very early in this year. So actually, when will they start actually studying those options? It will be obviously at the start of year 9, but we have to start this process early to make sure we do what's right for the kids, and we make sure we're getting them the options that they want to do. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, just another point I would say as well, which will be useful, and I think we'll reiterate that this year. Pupils are welcome to research that subject, to try to get ahead, do a little bit of reading, do some work over the summer holiday or over the Easter holiday, and to make sure that they find out a little bit more about the subject, about the content, even ask the teachers who will be teaching it, what's the first topic in September. So to really get a running start, I think that's wise if pupils are able to do that. So obviously then everybody gets off to a flying start in year 9.
Our next question asks about the EPD setup and asks if pupils aren't choosing PE or sports studies as an option, will that make a difference to their inclusion to EPD in the future? I believe I've got an answer on this, but I will see if Mr. Newby wants to answer on that first, just as I know you work with PE quite a bit. Did you have an answer on that? If not, I believe I do.
I would say there is no connection necessarily. Pupils on their ability in sports, in the different sports disciplines, the EPD program will run based on that. Obviously on their attitude and their punctuality and turning up, and I'm sure that that's always strong, that pupils on the program recognize that it is a valuable program. But it isn't necessarily the case that pupils ought to feel pressured to study either of the two sports courses. There's no connection.
No, these choices are part of the academic mainstream curriculum, the academic curriculum. When it comes to extracurricular activities in the school, we still want pupils to have full access to them. So these are academic choices based on courses they want to study for Key Stage 4. And as you rightly say, we wouldn't stop them from enjoying their extracurricular activities, including the EPD program. So yeah, that's exactly what I thought as well. But our next question says, talks about photography, but asking the clarification of is that course combined with art, and how does that work? Well, if pupils go on to study or choose to study photography, they will get a GCSE in arts. Okay, and what we will be doing is, because the art curriculum is quite broad and what the exam board allow, there will be an art version of the course and then a version of the GCSE art course that is built more around photography. So although it will technically be a GCSE in art, a lot of the units that are optional that you can pick, some pupils will pursue the art courses, and those will be our art students, if you like, and some pupils will pursue the photography elements of the course. So the reason they're combined like that is so that the art and photography department, because it's one department, are aware of their numbers, and then they will ask pupils, well, are you more interested in the art version of the course or the photography version? The official GCSE, though, will be GCSE art, but they will get plenty of opportunity to work with photography if that's what they're interested in.
Everybody does art, so I would say discuss with your child's teacher or ask the pupil to discuss that. And of course, I've mentioned the new videos that are coming. Art are going to do one to clarify that as well, the position and what the course entails. But as Mr. Roberts says, yes, there isn't a GCSE photography as such, but there is elements of photography that may well apply to pupils and their interests. Thank you.
Our next question says, can you go up as well as down on the pathways? Well, the first thing I'd say about that is it's not a case of going up and down. Whilst obviously one has more subjects on it, if you like, or no, it doesn't have more subjects on it. It has different subjects in terms of humanities and languages. It's not a case that there's a tiered system or one pathway being better than another and people getting rewarded by moving up or punished by moving down. Our pathways are based on what is right for the child and making sure that we are getting you ready for college, work, apprenticeships, sixth form, whatever you decide to do, and giving you the most appropriate support. So that is what our pathway is about. You don't move up and down, if you like. If you're asking, well, are some pupils that start on the blue pathway, can they move to the red pathway if it's deemed more appropriate? My answer would be, we don't get a lot of cases like that. We usually find that our learning development department are very good at identifying the pupils that would benefit from the Blue Pathway. Although if that was something that you wanted to discuss and good progress was being made in maths and English, for example, then that would be a discussion to have with Mrs. Fowler, our assistant head teacher in SENCO, who would take those discussions further. When it comes to the Purple Pathway in year 10, that is a pathway that teachers will decide some pupils will go on to. The large majority of pupils will stay on the Red Pathway because that's the English Baccalaureate. That is the curriculum that the government have said is the one they want the majority of pupils doing. So most pupils will stay on that Red Pathway. We will decide if some pupils need to move on to the Purple Pathway, and that will be a decision based on whether we feel like they would benefit from more English and maths support. So it's not moving down onto the Purple Pathway, it's just making sure we're providing the right support where it's needed. It's no good us, putting all these options in place if then the maths and the English, which we know people are going to need when they leave school, we're worried that they might not get passes in those subjects. So that decision is solely made by the teachers, the professionals who know these pupils well in English and maths and humanities and languages, as opposed to it being a behaviour thing or indeed the pupils requesting it. It is made solely at the discretion of the teachers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So a good question here from humanities. Would the child get their choice of either geography or history, or could they end up studying the subjects they have dropped? I take that, is that at the now in year 8?
Yeah.
So yes is the answer to that. They can choose, but I think we'd have an input as well. And some pupils, interestingly, may feel confident in both or not as confident, but teachers feel actually that the stronger of the two is not the same as the pupil thinks. And so we would think, just with the likelihood of success, that there's a discussion to have there, a nice discussion to have if a pupil enjoys both. We don't think the demand there is for pupils to do both. Previously that has happened, but they both have similarities, and the academic demand, we want to really make sure that the breadth of the choices is as broad as possible. So yes, it's either on the Red Pathway, it's either geography or history. The child will have a major input in deciding that, but there are occasions where pupils actually, once they've reflected and once teachers have given advice, that actually, yes, actually I may well be better doing the other one, if you like, the second subject.
And we do occasionally get questions about, oh, could I do history and geography? Rarely pupils have done that. Very few schools would advise that pupils do that. I know that the other local schools in the area, curriculum wise, they would say that's quite demanding because they're both quite heavy duty subjects. So they're both what we call bucket 2 subjects, which are quite hard going. There's a lot of content to cover. On occasion we've allowed it, but only where a pupil really justifies why they're so keen to do that. But it is very, very rare. I believe
I've got another one. Sorry, yeah. Did you want to taster sessions? I'll do that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So on the taster session, will we be able to have a timetable to remind our children when they are? Yes, that will happen. We're in the process of organising that, and that will come out ideally a week before. So looking at next week. There we are. It's clearer. Looking at next week, I would hope by this time next week we'll offer some information about the schedule.
Yeah.
But obviously we've got to see what fits with teachers, with their own commitments, and make sure that we can fit it in. But we will broadcast that. We'll put that information on the website. We'll put it with tutors so that tutors can remind them, and we will have things in place.
Yeah. Timetables will, as we said, we will have a timetable for it. They'll be on the website. The videos that we're making from different subjects, talking about what the subject's all about, over the next few weeks, you will start to find them pop up on the website as well, so you can look at them at home as well as pupils doing so in tutor time. Those sessions, those taster sessions, will be during lunch times, but obviously we will still be following all the usual measures we have in place with regards to COVID. Those measures will still be in place in those taster sessions at lunchtime, just as if it were a normal lesson. So all of those sort of procedures will still be in place. I believe, where would pupils hand their options forms in? The best person to hand that into will be Mr. Helen, the head of year 8. He'll take in the large majority. To be honest with you, if you bump into myself or Mr. Newby and you want to hand over a form, or if you give your form to your tutor, that would be fine as well. But I know that Mr. Helen will be playing a very active role in making sure you're handing those in. So he would be the best person to go to in the Key Stage 3 office. The next question about psychology alongside history and sociology. Do you think that would be too much work, or would it be wise to do those together? I'm sure you want to say a bit about breadth in the curriculum in a moment. I'll just give a little bit of advice in those areas. I would argue that certain subjects, if you do them together, they're very similar, and you don't necessarily need to do all of them, and it might be better to choose. Psychology and sociology would be one of those examples where they're quite similar disciplines. They're both quite academic. They're both quite a lot of writing involved, a lot of study and revision. So we would advise that you pick one or the other, because particularly alongside history as well, a very big essay writing subject, you don't want to overburden yourself with a lot of writing. So our advice would be to pick one of psychology or sociology in that case. I don't know if you want to say a bit about when picking broad subjects. Or
I think that's right. All I'd add is really, it's not necessarily if a pupil wants to do something as a career that they have to study it at GCSE. There are A levels that can be taken when the subject hasn't been studied at GCSE. But I think that breadth that Mr. Roberts has mentioned there is important, that we would want pupils to be able to have and demonstrate, I think, to future employers that they have been able to seize the opportunities and use and learn the skills that are very different in different subjects. And as Mr. Roberts did say, burden, and I think the similarity might look on the surface as a good idea, and there may be occasions and individuals who have chosen, but I would say as a general rule, not so sure that would help the individual in the long term.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, a key thing to remember, Mr. Newby is right there. These are GCSE options. Whilst it's important to make the right decisions, it's not the end of the line. And if you have a change of heart by the end of year 11 and think, I'm not really interested in this subject anymore, there's actually a different sort of career I'm now considering. Of course, when you go to A levels or whatever you decide to do post 16, you can still go into other options. So sociology and psychology are a perfect example. You don't have to study them at GCSE to study them at A level. You can pick them up at A level and you'd be absolutely fine. If you want to study them, brilliant, and it's a good course to do. But you know, the doors aren't closed to you for A levels and other level 3 qualifications based on your GCSEs, or at least not in most cases. So, the key thing I often say to parents is, at GCSE level 2, it's about breadth, doing various different subjects, so you're keeping your options open for later in life, what you might want to do. When you get to A level 3 qualifications, level 3 BTECs and things like that, go into college and sixth form, it's not so much about breadth. Then you might go into depth and think about a certain area. So I'll give you an example. If you were interested in a career in law at university, whilst at GCSE, it'd be absolutely fine to take a broad range of subjects. You might decide at A level to hone in then on essay writing subjects like your English, your philosophy, history, those sorts of subjects. That's not to say, you know, there's all different routes into university and into wider employment. So there's no one fixed rule. But I would say at GCSE, we're quite happy for you to keep your options quite open. It's later on in your education where you have to really specify on certain subjects that a discipline you want to go down.
Okay, and another one here about if a pupil has a career in mind already, can they talk to somebody about what options are best? Definitely. Having said that, it's obviously best that pupils do subjects that they're interested in and maybe would lead to a career. But bear in mind what Mr. Roberts said there about it's not the long-term future that is decided in the next few weeks. It's about studying a subject that a pupil will, when it's like this time of year, when it's dark and when they have to be that they're motivated to work. that they're able to find out, when the going gets tough, as they say. So it's important, I think, that they have the right attitude to that subject and willingness to work on their own when things are tough. I would say there about then getting advice. Yes, so speak to the tutor, make it known, please. Individual, we've got the emails at the end of this session. They're in the booklet. There's the tutor, there's Mr. Helen as well. You can email, contact the school just by telephone, and we will endeavour to get the internal support for that choice to talk about the areas that a child is interested in, some of the advice that we might give. And of course, we will have some careers input as well over the years. So we can signpost that.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we've got a lot of experience with options and things like that, and post 16 as well, and knowing what A levels pupils want to take. So we can provide plenty of advice over the year. I did see one question just a little bit further up about careers, whether there's a careers day in school, or is there a contact in school to talk about careers later on in life. Yes, we have a dedicated lead practitioner for that. That's Mr. Powell. And he is our lead practitioner for post 16 and careers. So he provides plenty of information regarding careers to pupils. Every single year in PSHRE lessons, our pupils will study some sort of scheme of learning related to careers. So we come back to it throughout their time at school, and we do everything from the various options available at post 16, to how to write a CV, to how to conduct an interview, to how to travel into London for work and things like that. And we do have careers talks, so careers advice meetings with Connections, a local organisation that support with careers advice. In year 11, all pupils will receive those bespoke interviews with Connections. Earlier in the school, we do provide careers advice and guidance in PSHRE. Normally, we also have sort of days where we have local companies who come in and things like that. We haven't been able to do that this year because of COVID, but that would be what we would normally do in year 10 and year 11. There would be these sort of careers days, if you like. We don't do it as early as year 8. But that's not to say that Mr. Powell won't be happy for you to give him an email or for people to go and speak to him and ask for his advice. He is available often in the mornings and tutor time in the technology office or in the library. So you can speak to him. He'll be more than happy to talk to you. And if parents want to email him, his email should be on the website, but it's jpo, that's jpo @woodlandschool.essex.sch.uk. And he is very knowledgeable on careers and post 16 and things like that. So if you want to speak to him, he will be more than happy to speak with you about that.
Thank you. There was an earlier one, if you could just go back up, one about the pupil that you'd highlighted. Yeah, that's right. So I've got one here about my son is worried about what to pick. Firstly, advice: relax, don't worry. Find this as a research opportunity to find out about the different subjects. Make that decision as late as possible, but after lots of discussion with home, with school, and we will help. So it's not a worry. It's not a decision. Whilst it's important, it's not the final decision. I think that's important to stress, that that's going to ruin or shape the career. I think it's important that pupils do subjects that they're best suited to, that the assessment is the best way for the pupils to succeed. That's all we want, is pupils to be happy in their learning and succeed, be successful both now and then obviously in the future, to take that forward. So not to worry. It's an anxious time, but we're very relaxed. I was relaxed when I led at the start of the week the PowerPoint. I'm confident in getting the best match for every individual. No one will get lost in the exercise. We're not going to leave behind anyone. So please don't worry. Just have those discussions and be relaxed at home. I could encourage parents to do that. Be relaxed about it. If there's a query and it can't be resolved overnight, of course, that's fine. Make a note of it. Make a note of who to contact, and we will get within the day some response, and if necessary, set up a telephone or face-to-face meeting in school. But there'll be lots of support.
Yeah. So our next question, do pupils that struggle with maths and English get help in their exams? Now, we legally can't provide help in exams. Obviously, those pupils with special educational needs and with some access arrangements, they might have a scribe or something in an exam, but we can't actually provide support in the official exams. But what we do in the run up to those exams over several years, there is a lot that goes on to support all subjects, but particularly maths and English. You'll see this as you move into year 10 and year 11. We do period 6 after school every single week. We have morning enhancements, so tutor time becomes, you focus on certain subjects that you may be struggling, and we have a lot of maths and English morning enhancement going on in tutor times. We have online tuition provided by external tutors for a program called My Tutor. We have days in half terms and on Saturdays where we help pupils prepare for their mock exams and for their real exams. So there is so much that goes on in the school, and I've now been here for, you know, about a year or so, a year and a half. I've never worked in a school that does so much extra to prepare pupils for their year 11 exams. And you will notice that as you move up the school, we do a hell of a lot. So whilst we can't help you in the actual exams, we know how important these subjects are. We know that maths and English in particular can be a worry for some pupils, and we do put in place a lot of additional support. As well as that, if we feel pupils need it, in year 10, they would go onto the Purple Pathway and have that extra hour of maths and English each week as well. So there's a lot of intervention that will go on to support you.
Okay, thank you. So there's a message here about if it is better to choose a broad range of subjects and avoid picking two similar ones, why the option is not streamlined to indicators. We want that full range of subjects because we recognise there's a broad range of talent in the year 8 pupils and interests in them. And so we want to offer as many subjects, but we also want to recognise that pupils do have needs, similar needs. They may be creative, if you like, or they may have interest in the humanities. But we also want to look at the whole picture of their choices. So it's a balance. It's always a balance. It's always a discussion as well. We said quite a few minutes ago about the similarity of different subjects and not recommending them, but we would like to have those discussions. It's not against the law to study sociology and psychology. It just depends on what the other subjects are. You know, and we've said the link there with sociology, history, psychology. For most people, might just be too much, but obviously we'd have a discussion on an individual level.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is that these are two free options. There are two subjects that pupils have a complete free reign, if you like, over what they pick, obviously with our advice. So we guarantee in the main the broad curriculum as it is, but that's why we do the EBAC for most pupils on the red pathway. Even on the blue pathway, there's a broad range. They do their maths, the English, the science, humanities, the language, the PE, the PSHRE. So we already cover a broad range of subjects. So it's not a case that it would be doom and gloom. You know, they pick two subjects that are similar. That's really not helped them out later in life. Our advice would be to keep it broad, but for those two subjects, if you want to go more specific, you can, because we do have a broad range of subjects on the compulsory curriculum as it is. But that's just general guidance that we give to pupils, that if you can be broad, be broad. But if you really are passionate about being specific for those two subjects, we're not going to stop you, because we do want you to take ownership over your learning, because part of you becoming an adult and part of our job as a school is developing into young adults, is you start to make some decisions for yourselves with the advice, obviously, of staff in school and of your parents.
Okay, so a good one here. Would it be advisable to study drama and film? I would say yes, that it's a popular combination. They're in different areas of the school. We've got different learning styles. So drama, obviously, there's the acting element, group work. Film, there may be some group work, and there is obviously an overlap on the surface with drama and film. But I think that's a fair combination, dependent on the other options that the pupil decides to do. So if they are keen on drama now and interested in film, and from the booklet and from the taster sessions feels that would be a good option choice, I think that's a good combination.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with that at all. Our next question asks about if a child is under our SENCO, Mrs. Fowler, are we able to discuss options with someone? Yes, please do contact Mrs. Fowler. It's emails sfo, that's sfo at woodlandschool.essex.sch.uk. She'll be more than happy to talk through options with you. She does so every year with a lot of pupils. So please do feel free to just give her an email or to contact the school via telephone and ask for her. Next question, how will it be decided if a child studies at level 1 or level 2? Well, the large majority of courses, they will study at level 2 because those are GCSE style courses. The only one in the options booklet, I believe, which mentions level 1 or 2 is on the blue pathway for ICT. And that's because the way the course is structured, some pupils will be able to do more of the course and get a level 2 qualification. If pupils are struggling and only get to complete a certain portion of the course, then we can still make sure that they get an award, a level 1 award. But obviously, ideally, we want them to try and complete the other part of the course as well to get a level 2. There is the odd subject as well, depends on the rules on the given subject, but sometimes if you don't reach a certain grade, for the level 2 qualification, rather than you getting a fail altogether, sometimes the exam board will give you a level 1 in that qualification. So it's almost a bit of a fail safe of, if you don't get the pass in level 2, just rather than just giving you an outright fail, they will offer you a level 1 qualification instead. So you won't study a level 1 qualification from the start of the course. The intention will be that you study a level 2, but you may end up being awarded level 1 if elements of the course are completed up to a pass.
There's a question here about someone wants to do special effects makeup for movies when older as a career. Wondering if film studies covers film makeup. I don't believe it does. There's a question that I was looking into. There is obviously a course we offer, which is hair and beauty. That may be appropriate, but I would say at this stage, just concentrating on the choice of subjects without necessarily thinking of the career. People are always impressed, certainly after pupils leave Woodlands, that they've been able to dedicate, have the resilience, work hard, and work on subjects. We don't offer, I don't think film has got that in, but I'm not, without looking through, I don't think it does focus on makeup. I would just say enjoy all the other subjects that are available. Do look at hair and beauty, but obviously it's on an individual discussion we need in school, and we're quite prepared for that. But it's quite a specific career request there, and I think it's just that will come, and at college there may well be more specialist courses available.
Yeah, film studies is more about analysing film at this stage, but again, it's GCSE, it's level 2 qualifications. It might be a good one to pick because you're showing I've got a passion for film, which would be good later when you're doing a level 3 qualification or beyond, and saying you might want to specialise in special effects makeup and things like that, but it wouldn't be part of the course at this stage. I think we're reaching a natural sort of end there, as I think most of the questions there have been answered. I'm also aware that the school are going to close at 7 o'clock, so we might get told off and all the lights will go off. So we'll probably end things around about here. If there's anything that you feel hasn't been answered, or any questions that we may have missed, apologies if that is the case, please do feel free to provide those questions in an email to either Mr. Newby or myself. We'll be more than happy to answer them. Likewise, you can catch us on the phone as well. So if you ring up the school and ask to speak to one of us is usually available. We might be teaching or things like that. But I just sort of, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Newby, at the moment.
Just thanks for joining us tonight. It's an important journey, but we're with you on that. We trust that we'll get every choice right as best we can, and that your son or daughter in Year 8 will have a fabulous 3 years at Key Stage 4 with us. It's important, obviously, that you get that advice. I would just say, find out, ask, don't be shy.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining us and for taking a sort of an active participation in this really important process. It is brilliant to see so many parents asking about their child's options, and that it's really important that you're helping them with this process and you're guiding them as well. So we really appreciate your time with that. So yeah, thank you for joining us, and any other questions you have, please do feel free to get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, I did that. was too bad. Did that go?